This lesson is about transformation. Transformation is the conversion of inputs into outputs. So for example, our inputs is carrots, and we're going to transform that into an output, which is carrot soup. Transforming goods. For goods, the transformation means there are physical changes. The output will be tangible. Tangible means I can touch it, I can pick it up. The operations process will be highly automated and mechanised for goods. For example, if we look at Samsung and their mobile phones, they take electronic parts, glass, metal and plastic, and they change that, they transform those raw materials into a mobile phone. Now that's very different when we're talking about services. For services, the changes will not be physical. It is intangible. We can't touch a service. The process will rely heavily on humans and staff. Now we said that for a good, we can get a machine to make a good in a lot of businesses. But with a service, that's more difficult. So we are going to rely very heavily on humans this time. Now, for example, Australia Post uses its inputs. Now, its inputs are staff, vehicles and letters. They then transform that into a postal service, which is the output. So when you receive a letter in the mail, that's their output, that's their service. Value adding. It costs the business money to transform an input because we're using electricity, we're paying staff, we're using machinery. So when we transform that input, we actually add value to the product. Now, for example, it's easier to see the value added when dealing with a good as opposed to a service. If we're making a hamburger, we can see that there is more value in this hamburger here than there is in the raw hamburger meat. This has more value than that. So we're saying that the process of operations actually adds value to raw materials. The influence of volume. Now, one of our key decisions is how much are we going to make? The business must be flexible so that it can respond to customer demand. For example, customers can be quite fickle. Something may be very fashionable this winter, and then next winter, people are refusing to buy it. Now, the business needs to be flexible. If customers no longer like the product, they need to think of a new product to make. The lead time is the time it takes for an order to be filled from the moment it is made. Now, many businesses will time this because they're always trying to improve their lead time. Time equals money for many businesses. The business must respond to changes in market demand. Otherwise, there might be wastage. So if my lead time is too slow and I'm making food, customers may not want to buy that food. If it's cold, if I'm at a restaurant and I order soup and the lead time from the time I order to the time it's delivered is very slow and that soup's been waiting for someone to deliver it to me, then I might say, look, I'm not interested in that soup anymore. So that means that there's going to be wastage. There's increased inventory costs. If I have a lot of raw materials just sitting in my storeroom and they're not being used, they actually start to cost money because they can be damaged or they may go out of date, etc. And it might also mean that I lose sales because usually in today's society, people expect our products quickly. And if we're waiting too long, we're not interested in that business anymore. Now, the influence of variety. The next key decision that we need to make is about variety. How much variation should we offer in our product range? What range of products or services will be made? Now, we can see the example of the shampoo company. 20 years ago, shampoo companies would have their shampoo and their conditioner. Straightforward. These days, we notice that they're offering a lot more variety for different hairstyles, for coloured hair, for curly hair, for short hair, for long hair, and other products that can be put on after the conditioning process. Now, mixed flexibility. Mixed flexibility is the mix of products made or the services delivered through the process. The variety of products has a huge impact on operations. If I'm only making one variety of product, so I'm making Coke, it's a very, very simple process for my operations team because they've got the machine set up, they've got their inputs, the transformation process is exactly the same every time, and the output is the same every time. However, if I then add another product, so I say Diet Coke or Coke Zero, I actually have to change not only the inputs, but the transformation process because it will be different, and obviously my output's going to be different. So that adds complications to my operations process. The more variety, the more complicated the operations process will be. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it is a factor when we make a new product. The influence of variation in demand. Now, an increase in demand will mean more inputs from suppliers, increased staff input, and increased machinery and technology. So it's always good news for a business when they've got more customers wanting their product. Fantastic, that can maximise profit. However, they have to be aware that means we need to get more supplies, more staff, and we have to get those products out to the customers on time. So a decrease in demand will have the opposite effect. So if all of a sudden we're finding we have less customers, then we have to quickly adapt because we need less supplies, less staff, and we're going to have less output. For example, staff hours may need to be reduced. And this is a very difficult thing for a business to deal with because sometimes the business will increase and they need staff, so they hire staff, and the next month they may find that they don't need those staff and they may have to let those staff go, which is quite stressful for a business. So what we need to do is predict our demand. We need to spend time and money building financial reports so that we actually can see what might be coming ahead. To manage the operations process effectively, the business must aim to forecast demand. Forecast demand is the process that I'm talking about here. How do we do that? We look at previous years. Okay, so we look at a year, so 2014, and we say, right, how many products were sold, how much variety was sold, when was it sold, and we compare that against 2013. Now that's going to help us predict for 2015. We have to think about seasonal factors. For example, if I'm in the ski industry and I'm making ski coats, ski boots, I need to be very aware that there's going to definitely be an increase in sales during winter, but there's going to be a decrease in sales during summer because people are obviously less interested. Also, we have annual events. Now, Christmas time, consumer spending spikes. There's a massive increase in consumer spending for gifts. Now, the influence of visibility. One final key decision that the business must make is how much customer contact should there be for us? The customer's perception of the business is critical and will affect demand. For many businesses, they are inviting their customers in. We now have bakeries that have a viewing area. They want their customers to see the bread being baked because they believe that actually attracts the customer to their product. Now, 10 years ago, that bakery would have been in the back room and no one would have seen it. So this is very much changing the visibility of customers. But we have to be careful because their perception is critical. And if they see something unhygienic happening in that bakery, it's going to turn them off the business. Direct customer contact occurs through surveys. Now, a lot of businesses will ask you, do you mind filling in this survey? Or on the phone, they might say, could I just have 2 minutes of your time to answer some questions about our business? We also might be interviewed. Sometimes businesses like Coca-Cola may get a group of people, a focus group, and they'll interview them. They'll give them a product, they'll ask them to try it, and then they'll get information back that way. Letters. A lot of customers write letters into businesses, mostly about complaints, but sometimes customers are very passionate about their products and they'll congratulate the business on that, and that's very important feedback. Verbal exchanges are also very important. Every day, customers will give you verbal exchanges. Some of them good, some of them bad. A good business records both because they want to know how to use that information. And finally, a huge revolution for business is the social media, Facebook. Most businesses now have a Facebook page, and customers can like different posts, new products or announcements that they make. Customers can also blog on those Facebook pages and let the business know what they think. Indirect customer contact occurs through review of sales data. So I can actually look back for January 2014 and see the level of sales. That will actually be a great indication of what people think of my product or service. I can look at customer reviews. If you go onto Google and you search a particular item, you'll often see customer reviews. And review of customer preferences. Customers will also tell you about different parts of your product. So if I'm making a car, they'll tell you about the GPS part of that car, or the wheels, or the spoilers. And so I can get a good information from indirect customer contact. That lesson was about the transformation process.